Charles Stimson is the Deputy Assistant Defense Secretary for Detainee Affairs, and here to join us about detainees at Guantanamo Bay. Mr. Stimson, one of the reasons, Stimson, we brought you on is that recently on this program we had an attorney for one of the Kuwaiti detainees at Guantanamo Bay. He made several statements about the facility. I want you to listen to one and respond directly to it.
Happy to.
The United States is charging people with war crimes, charging people who the United States says are doing things that are not allowed by the laws of war. Again, most of the people in Guantanamo have been called enemy combatants. That simply means that the United States is accusing them of fighting with the Taliban or perhaps with Al-Qaeda against the United States. But to be charged with a war crime, you have to have been charged with doing something that's outside of the law of war.
Your response?
Last time I checked, murder, kidnapping, taking of hostages by unprivileged belligerents is a war crime. And we saw this in Nuremberg and other war crimes trials that have happened over the years. And that is no different from what we're going to start with when we kick off commissions again this year. So he's wrong.
When are the commissions expected to begin?
There are a few things that have to happen before that, Pedro. First is we have to submit, the Office of Military Commissions, DOD, has to submit to Congress on the 15th of January the Military Commissions Manual, essentially the implementing rules for the Military Commissions Act. And that will happen next week. And then I'm told that the Office of Military Commissions will begin charging new folks, most likely the 10 that were charged before, and then move forward and look at other folks who are who've potentially committed war crimes.
And just to start, the commissions are based to do what?
Are based?
What do they do?
As in previous war crimes trials, they're going to look very much like a court-martial that you would see in any criminal court in military bases today. But they are the vehicle to hold accountable those smaller subset of detainees in Guantanamo who have committed articulable war crimes. For instance, the alleged planners of 9/11, the bombers for the coal, the embassy bombings in Kenya and Tanzania, things like that.
And as far as how many people are you expecting to go through these commissions, and how many are at Guantanamo Bay total?
Right now, Pedro, there are about 395 detainees in Guantanamo. A smaller subset, I'm told between 60 and 80 detainees will be charged by the Office of Military Commissions. Some will be charged and you'll see a multiple defendant trial. So there'll be about 60 trials, I'm told, by the Office of Military Commissions.
And of those that are currently there, what was the number that started with Guantanamo Bay? How many have been let go from there?
We have released or transferred 377 detainees from Guantanamo. So we're almost at the point of equilibrium where we've released more than we have. And what's important to note also, Pedro, is that we have just less than 100 detainees who have already been approved for release or transfer from Guantanamo, but we're going through the diplomatic channels to get other countries to take them back because, as the President has said and others, we don't want to be the world's jailer. We want other countries to step up and accept responsibilities for detainees during this time of war.
And what determines the ones you hold on to? What determines, who makes the determination of who stays?
Ultimately, the person who makes the decision is the designated civilian official. It's the Deputy Secretary of Defense. After the intelligence community, the military staffs, Guantanamo, FBI, other intelligence agencies, my office, the Joint Staff, individually look at each detainee. There is a process in place now called the Annual Review Board process, where we look at each detainee thoroughly and decide whether or not he poses too great a risk or poses too much intelligence risk to release or transfer off the island.
If you want to ask our guests questions about Guantanamo Bay, the numbers will be on your screen. They all start with a 202 area code, and we've divided them by, if you support Democrats, 202-737-0002, 202-737-0001 for those of you who support President Bush, and 202-628-0205 for those of you who support others. Why keep it open?
It's important during a time of war to have a place where, number one, you can take people off the battlefield and not allow them to go back to the battlefield, which is what the law of war says we can do and any country can do during a time of war. but also exploit intelligence that they may possess. And Guantanamo today remains the key strategic intelligence platform in the war on terror. And so we continue to get good intelligence from detainees and requests from the field that we pose to detainees in interrogations if they choose to talk to us.
And what level of interrogations are used to get this intelligence? What are the means?
Conversation like you and I are having. As you know, on September 6th, not only did the President announce that the 14 folks came out of the CIA interrogation program to Guantanamo, but also we put out the new Army Field Manual, which is unclassified, the world can read it, and it authorizes 19 interrogation techniques. The one that is used at Guantanamo only is the direct approach, what you and I are doing now, and if detainees don't want to talk, we don't talk to them. If they want to talk to us, we talk to them.
And tell us a little bit about the living conditions that detainees go through.
The conditions in Guantanamo are safe and humane. They have the ability to exercise between 2 and 14 hours a day. They get 3 square meals a day, halal-based, blessed by an imam. We offer them 4,200 calories a day. They can eat as much or as little as they want. They get first-class medical and dental care, the same medical and dental care that our service members get. They have sent 44,000 pieces of mail on and off the island. We taxpayers pay for their postage. There's a 5,000 book library. They certainly can read books in their native language. They have the opportunity for call to prayer 5 times a day. And the guards respect a period of silence during their 5 periods of call to prayer. And of course the ICRC, the only internationally recognized body in the Geneva Conventions, has unfettered access to the detainees, and they speak with them privately. And then I have a confidential dialogue with the ICRC about the results of those conversations.
When he was here, David Cinnamon also made some statements regarding the treatment of detainees as he saw it from his client. Here's what he had to say.
It's been pretty miserable. I think we all know that in the early years of Guantanamo, there were a lot of abuses going on. When those abuses and the abuses at Abu Ghraib came to light, fortunately, the outright physical abuse and torture, I think, certainly can't say that it's come to an end, but certainly been minimized. But you still have a situation where people are kept, in effect, in a maximum security prison with indefinite sentences, and yet have never been charged with a crime and have never had a fair hearing to determine whether they should be there in the first place.
Mr. Stimson.
He's wrong on a lot of fronts. Number one, you don't have to believe me, a Department of Defense spokesman. Numerous high-level European delegations have gone to Guantanamo, outside observers that I've taken. The Organization for Security Cooperation in Europe, headed by the president of the Belgian Senate, went to Gitmo this year, 2006. She said, at the level of detention facilities, it is a model prison where people were better treated than in Belgian prisons. The European parliamentarians went. James Ellis, who's a Brit by birth, said, "My impression is that the camp is run with the utmost professionalism, and the conditions under which the detainees are being held are clean and humane and follow the spirit of the Geneva Conventions." Elmar Brok, a German European parliamentarian, says the way people are dealt with is much better now. They have everything they need in their cells. They have good food, first-class medical service. And finally, the UK Foreign Affairs Committee went, and the chairman, a Liberal Democrat, said the facilities are comparable to those at the best prisons in the world. They are actually much better than I had expected. I think there has been a real sea change in the thinking about Gitmo. The one thing the criminal defense attorney said that is a little disturbing to me is he's conflating, I don't know whether it's intentional or unintentional, 2 concepts that are important to understand. Criminal law. If you went out here, Pedro, and committed a crime, you'd be charged in our criminal justice system, and if convicted, you'd be punished and sent to prison. Under the law of armed conflict, under the law of war, we don't have to charge anybody. No country has to charge anybody once they pick them up on the battlefield. We simply take them, not for punishment, but to remove them from the battlefield so they can't re-engage in the fight. Actually, 22 or more of the detainees we've transferred from Guantanamo have re-engaged in the fight. So the last thing I would say about his misstatements are this. He says that there are no processes in place. That's just a bold-faced lie, and I'm disappointed in his comment. After several Supreme Court cases, we set up what's called the Combatant Status Review Tribunals, very much akin to what an Article 5 tribunal would look like in the Geneva Conventions, but better because it offers the detainees more rights to present their case. That was a one-time process back in 2004, and out of that 558 people we put through that process, 38 were released. Then, although we don't have to do it, every year we conduct these annual review boards, and last year alone, Pedro, we sent 114 detainees back. And so now we're under 400 detainees. There are less than 100, near 100 other detainees who have already been approved for transfer. So, you know, it's important to remember that over 10,000 people were picked up in Operation Enduring Freedom, the Afghanistan conflict. Of those, processes were put in place to figure out who would qualify most for going to Guantanamo. Less than 700 went, and now there's less than 400.
Our first call for you comes from Mackville, North Dakota.
Hello. I'm really disappointed in our country. I cannot believe this stuff. We give these people better care than a lot of our military men get. We don't chop their heads off like they do to us. There are places in the United States of America that don't even have a library in their town. We feed them. We have children in our country going to bed starved. And guess what? Who cares? Where's the ACLU there? We really take care of these people. And I am just really appalled. I have military children, and I'm proud that they serve their country. I've taught them God and country, and they want to keep us safe. And I am so disappointed in the American people that don't get it. I feel really bad for Cindy Sheehan, or whatever her name is, because she lost her son, but she's not doing him any justice. We don't do anything about these. We don't really look at what Saddam really did. We don't look at these. Why don't we show these people being beheaded? I mean, that's torture.
Okay, caller, thanks.
The caller has it right on many aspects. This country is the beacon of liberty and hope throughout the world. It really is. And regardless of what administration's in power, we remain that. And I've heard the criticisms, or the constructive criticism, from folks such as this lady, who's clearly an American patriot, that we treat the detainees too well. It's a tough balance. I think that she's right. There are a lot of prisons in the world, a lot, where detainees are treated very poorly. We have an outstanding human rights record in this country. We will continue to maintain that. But I share in some of her sentiment. I think many other people do, too.
Paramus, New Jersey.
Hello, I'm Andrew from Paramus. I guess what's disconcerting of Mr. Stimson is how he brushes aside any concerns of Guantanamo and its impact on our foreign policy, on the image of the United States. And that's what's concerning to me. What I would like is specifically him to address the FBI agents who have gone to Guantanamo, saw what was going on there, refused to participate in interrogations because of the abuses they saw and the abuses they continue to see. These aren't ACLU types. These are FBI agents. And I've never heard the administration clearly address those concerns. Thank you.
The administration has addressed those concerns. In fact, you can go to the DoD website and read the Schmidt-Furlow report. There are no abuses going on in Guantanamo now. In the beginning of Guantanamo, we've been very candid with the public. There were incidents, minor, where people mistreated detainees. Those incidents were investigated. People were held accountable. The FBI agents are not seeing abuses at Guantanamo now. The Washington Post article last week was somewhat disingenuous, in my opinion. In 2002 and 2003, a FBI agent witnessed interrogation techniques that he was unfamiliar with as a law enforcement officer. He emailed headquarters didn't respond. But what happened is the military took it upon itself to investigate those emails, and General Schmidt and General Furlow issued a report that's open for the world to see. It was issued about 2 years ago, looking into those allegations. Some were found to be true. Most were not found to be true, but you can read it for yourself.
Are there maximum security facilities at Camp Guantanamo Bay?
There are. Admiral Harris, who's the Joint Task Force commander, says while there may be such things as a medium security prisoner, there's no such thing as a medium security terrorist. The newest two camps that were built, Camp 5 and Camp 6, are based on prisons in Indiana and Michigan, and the facilities are very modern, and I would encourage C-SPAN to go. You know, Pedro, over 2,000 media across the globe have been to Guantanamo. There's media on the island today, 400 different media outlets. Old Europe, New Europe, Middle East, Far East, all the domestic media, they've been there. It's clearly the most transparent detention facility in the world.
We're also looking at some video that one of our producers shot up camp, or the fourth facility, I guess. What's this, give a little descriptor of this facility.
That is actually one of the older facilities, Pedro. That is either Camp 1, 2, or 3. Those were stood up in 2002, and only one of those camps is being used now. And that, I can't tell whether it's 1, 2, or 3 because they all look the same.
This was taken in last year, Gibson Beach, Florida.
Hey, Mr. Stimson, how you doing today?
Great.
Hey, I'm so sorry you have to be put in this position, you as well as the President of the United States of America. The things that we do for these different countries when they try to attack our country, we treat it with such respect, and we have like the lady from North Dakota said earlier, we treat these people better than we treat the bombs on our streets, and a lot of our other prisons, and yet still they got you. They criticize you, they criticize the president for treating these people. I mean, just imagine the bombs on the street. They would love to be in a place like this. It's just sad that you guys would have to be put in this predicament, because our soldiers are being killed day by day, and we're steady running around talking about just like some of these parents of these soldiers that's been killed. Have these people been treated right? Our kids are dead, dead, and we are sitting around here telling everybody that people are talking about we're treating their people wrong. I'm just sorry to have you here today, sir.
San Antonio, Texas, you're next.
Yeah, 9/11 happened, and we went and invaded Afghanistan and rounded up these goat herders who've never heard of Osama bin Laden, throw them in jail. Invade Iraq, had nothing to do with 9/11, pretend that we played a charade with word games. And what I'd like to see is the biggest war criminal in the world, President Cheney. I'd like to see him drug out of the White House in the handcuffs and tried as a war criminal for this fake war we're leading.
Talk a little bit about the discussion about being defined as an enemy combatant, being defined as a prisoner of war. Where are we at that stage? They are deemed enemy combatants.
Yeah, great question. Under the law of war, under the Geneva Conventions, there's 4 of them. If you're a combatant, you're either a legal, lawful enemy combatant or an unlawful enemy combatant. And we have taken the liberty of putting that in writing in our new DoD directive that we issued on September 6th. And it's interesting. It's interesting, Pedro. The Geneva Conventions are somewhat Pavlovian. If you follow certain rules, they encourage behavior. First off, you have to sign the Geneva Conventions. Secondly, you have to follow the rules if you've signed them. Clearly, we know Al-Qaeda and the Taliban and other affiliates thereof don't wear a uniform, don't fight for a country that signed the Geneva Conventions, kill civilians indiscriminately, don't wear a uniform, etc. And therefore, they're not entitled to the privileges, all the privileges that the Geneva Conventions would afford a prisoner of war. Nevertheless, as a country, we have decided to establish a baseline standard of care and treatment for all detainees, adopting Common Article 3 that grew out of the Hamdan decision this summer. And I think we should be proud as a country that we've established that. I mean, that sort of addresses what another thing one of the callers said. I mean, our country, we can't lower ourselves to where the enemy would take us. We have to remain the paragon of human rights that we are. Look, have people made mistakes? Absolutely. When the caller brought up Abu Ghraib, that is a disgusting stain in our history. Those small group of individuals committed atrocities that you and I couldn't even imagine. That it was disgusting, it was wrong, and it has hurt our image.
Salt Lake City.
Hi, how you doing, Pedro? You guys do a nice job. I'm a 100% service-connected, retired vet, and I'm proud of the way our guys treat the people at Guantanamo Guantanamo. We shouldn't be lowering ourselves to the standards of what's gone on with the other people. But at the same time, I feel sorry for the secretary here because he's got to be filling in holes for the administration and right from this surge thing to Guantanamo, them wanting to build a courthouse and all this other stuff, the stall thing, President Bush he knows he's stuck in a war he can't win and he can't get out of, and he just wants to pass it on to the next guy.
Well, I don't think he should feel sorry for me. I took this job voluntarily. I've served in the military. I continue to serve in the reserves. I'm a commander in the United States Navy. And more importantly, as part of that service, I've been a criminal defense attorney as a JAG and a prosecutor. And I'm not filling in the holes for anybody. I'm simply providing facts that I know.
Tiverton, Rhode Island.
Yes, thank you very much, C-SPAN. And Secretary, I first have a comment. I want to thank you for your honorable service to our country. It's great to see people who are so willing to sacrifice their selfish interests in honor of our country. And my second question is, are there any detainees in Guantanamo Bay from Iraq, or are they people who were picked up in Afghanistan? Thank you very much, C-SPAN. Thank you.
It's certainly my honor to serve. Thank you for mentioning it. No, there are no detainees in Guantanamo from Iraq. The detainees in Guantanamo were picked up during OEF, Operation Enduring Freedom. Most of them were captured in Afghanistan or fleeing Afghanistan.
Are there Americans among that lot?
No.
And what are the countries represented generally?
I wish I had the list, Pedro, but the big three populations are Yemenis, Afghans, and Saudis. And then there's a whole handful, dozens of other countries, onesies and twosies from other countries.
Philadelphia, good morning. Go ahead.
Hello. Good morning to everybody.
Morning.
I want to know, since the conviction of the young man in Brooklyn on terrorist charges that were actually coerced by one of our own government agencies, after his conviction for 30 years, this proves that this war on terror is a fake war on terror, and Guantanamo Bay is just a stage. That's right. Guantanamo Bay is just a stage to have everyone brainwashed on this fake war on terror. We're not proving that we have any terrorists. There was never any proof. There won't be any real convictions without your involvement. That's right. You're getting nervous under the collar. You know it's the truth. The whole war on terror, 9/11, it was all perpetrated internally. And we're locking innocent people up now. You had the Florida Liberty 7 or whatever you nicknamed them. We don't hear anything else about that. Your war on terror, Mr. President, you, Mr. I forget your name, but you're all guilty of war crimes. You should all be in Guantanamo Bay.
Made your point, caller. Thanks.
During the commissions last year, Pedro, one of the detainees, and we normally don't name them by names, but he's a commissions candidate, so it's publicly known, Al Sharby, said on April 27, 2006, in open court with all the press there, quote, "I'm going to make this easy for you. I'm proud of what I did, and there isn't any reason of hiding. I fought against the United States. I took up arms. May God help me fight the infidels or the unfaithful ones." Another detainee, Al Balul, said in his commission's case, he stood up on March 1st, 2006, made 7 references to September 11th in his opening statement, very boastful comments, boasted 5 times that he was a member of Al-Qaeda. I can tell that the caller is quite passionate about her opinions. I respectfully disagree with them. The people we have at Guantanamo are terrorist trainers, financiers, bombers, what I have called the engine of Al-Qaeda and its affiliates. It takes more than just trigger pullers to pull off terrorist attacks.
How much information is used in stopping future terrorist acts, and talk about the kinds of information you get from these folks?
I'm told from the intelligence briefings I've received, and of course I've been to Guantanamo many times, that the information we get from these detainees has been quite helpful and quite relevant in stopping various terrorist attacks even quite recently.
Such as?
Well, I can't go into intelligence activities, but I can tell you that if I could pull my notes here, For instance, give me an example. There was, as we kill Taliban in Afghanistan, there's a leadership vacuum. And there was a new person who rose to a certain leadership position in the Taliban, but no one had seen a picture of him and no one knew what he looked like. But detainees in Guantanamo knew who this person was because we knew the name, and we asked them through interrogations what he looked like. And the FBI brought down a sketch artist who did a composite sketch of this person. We sent that out to the field, and that's been very helpful in eliminating that threat.
David Stimson is joining us, and he'll be with us until 10 o'clock, Yuma, Arizona.
Good morning, gentlemen. How you doing? I just had a question about the detainees being held. You said that you can hold them forever. What type of plans do we have to? Do we plan to keep them forever, or at what point can we determine some sort of punishment, release them, or whatever the case may be? And thank you for your service. Appreciate it.
It's a great question because it shows a mixture of concepts that need to be parsed apart. Again, under the law of war, under the law of armed conflict, we don't take people off the battlefield to punish them. Indeed, quite the opposite. We take them off the battlefield simply to prevent them from going back to the fight. Any country, our country, Canada, you name it, is entitled to hold its enemy throughout the duration of the conflict. You know, Al-Qaeda started this war. This didn't start on 9/11. It started way before that. The Al-Qaeda issued 2 fatwas against the United States, and Al-Qaeda and its affiliates and the world terrorists will decide if they want to say that when the war is over. So they have every opportunity to declare defeat.
Will we always have a need for Guantanamo Bay?
I hope not. I really do hope not. The President has said he'd like to move to the day when we can close Guantanamo. I share in that. I think that's just a common sense thing. But as the war on terror progresses, we're going to need to take detainees out of the fight and hold them safely and humanely throughout the duration of the conflict. We do that in Iraq. We have over 14,000 detainees in Iraq. We have some in Afghanistan, about 600 in Afghanistan, and we have less than 400 in Gitmo.
A couple of emails. One asks, I've read that there are children as young as 12 years of age being held there. Is that true?
Absolutely not. No. There are no minors, period, at Guantanamo.
Another email asks, cite the cost of making and maintaining Guantanamo as a detention installation.
A lot less than another 9/11, but I'm told that the operating budget of Guantanamo is about $100 million a year. I'm also told that another 9/11 would cost several $1 trillion. So I think if you do a cost-benefit analysis, I think it's probably worth it.
Emailer also asked, do you anticipate international legal problems?
I'm not sure what they're referring to. We're in compliance with the Geneva Conventions. We certainly apply and have applied throughout this war on terror, Common Article 3. Are there criticisms? Yes, there are criticisms, Pedro. Do I listen to them? I absolutely do. I talk to our international partners and allies and people who aren't so friendly with us about this.
What's the main criticism?
It's indefinite detention. It's when does the war on terror end? Because it's not going to be like World War II, where I think there was an armistice. You know, there's not going to be a signing on some deck of a battleship. I don't suppose there will be. I'd like it to be. Just don't think it's going to happen. But what that does not do is it doesn't magically, mysteriously create a right to a trial. So this drumbeat you hear from the far radical left, try them or let them free, is not in compliance with the law. It's not consistent with the Geneva Conventions, and alas, and unfortunately for them, it's not consistent with what our Supreme Court continues to say, that we are entitled to hold them throughout the duration of the conflict, and we don't have to give them a trial.
San Diego.
Hi. Just a couple of points here. I think it's kind of funny that you would actually use the word humane after everything that's come out for the last 5 years that you people have had Gitmo going. I think it's pretty clear that humane is not quite the word that you want to use. We all know that Abu Ghraib, which you have mentioned before, was quote-unquote Gitmoized, and that's where some of the treatment that those Abu Ghraib prisoners
were given came from Gitmo. We know that. We also know that there were teenagers at Gitmo. You may have, not you personally, but the Bush administration may have released some of them by now. But we know there have been teenagers in Gitmo. Let's see, if they were so bad, let's see, Rumsfeld said they're the worst of the worst. Why have you been able to release so many after 4 or 5 years of, detention and mistreatment? And don't say that they weren't mistreated, because we know they were. Why is it that the Bush administration didn't do anything about this until after the Hamden decision, and then you turn around and say that the Hamden decision was in your favor? We all know it wasn't. Gitmo is a stain on the American people. I think you have a lot of courage coming on and trying to spin what the Bush administration is doing.
Caller, we'll have to leave it at that.
Well, I respectfully disagree with the caller. We take our international obligations seriously, Pedro. The caller should reference the hundreds or thousands of media reports that have come out of Guantanamo, where people who have visited there. I just read the quotes from the various UK, European, and other parliamentarians who have been there. We treat detainees humanely. We have to. We are the paragon of human rights in the world, and we need to remain that way. We need to keep the ethical and moral high bar high.
She talked about the amounts that were let go.
Yeah, I will address that. It's really unprecedented in a time of war, Pedro, if you think about it, to release your enemy. I mean, would we have thought it even possible or common sense to release the tens of thousands of Nazis we brought off the battlefield and brought here to the United States during World War II? Obviously not. Was Winston Churchill wrong when he took Nazi prisoners of war and squirreled them away in Canada for years during the World War II? Obviously not. But this is a global war on terror. The globe. This is a fight against radical Islamic fascists versus the Western modern world, not just the United States. And so I'm very proud to say that other countries are willing to accept detainees back from Guantanamo, mitigate the threat that they pose through security assurances, which is why we do this. But I would say it's not an exact science, and the caller should realize, unfortunately, that at least 22 of the detainees who we've transferred back from Guantanamo have gone back to the fight and killed our fellow citizens or coalition partners. And it'll be interesting to see what happens, and I'll be curious to see here how that caller will react if one of the Gitmo graduates leaves Gitmo and then comes back to the world stage and blows up something huge. What then will be the criticism, that we let too many people go?
For Charles Stimson, Lakewood, Ohio.
Yes, I want to say I back you, Mr. Stimson, 110%. I don't know where so many liberal, ignorant callers call in about we're torturing them and this and that. Have they forgot what they have done to some of our soldiers over in Iraq, them terrorists? Burned their bodies, cut their hearts out, their eyes, beheaded them, but yet we got the liberals. Maybe we should just give them citizenship at Guantanamo in the United States and turn them loose, and hopefully they will attack some of these asinine callers. Thank you very much.
Unless you want to respond to anything. Valdosta, Georgia.
Yes, I am disappointed in the caller that just called in, because there's a lot of ignorance under the heading of conservatism. I had 6 brothers in World War II. All of them volunteered, and a stepbrother. One was killed. I spent 21 years in the military, and I want to speak bluntly and straightforward to you, sir. It wasn't GIs who bought dog leashes and took to Abu Ghraib. There is no way that happened. The people who have perpetrated this had to come from the top. And you're in the protection system of the top. You're not interested in truth. You do not have to exempt yourself from the jurisdiction of treaties and laws that you support for others if you're innocent. Now, let me say that again. You're a lawyer. You do not have to exempt yourself from the Geneva Convention and laws that you want enforced on others. This is hypocrisy at the nth degree.
I think it's a great country where we can express our opinions, whether they're correct or incorrect. The investigation into what happened at Abu Ghraib is very clear. A rogue band of people on one tier in Abu Ghraib committed these asinine, ridiculous, and sometimes criminal acts against Iraqi detainees. It has hurt our image. It takes a lot of time to come back, to build our image back up. The reality is that it was a rogue group of people. I'm not protecting anybody. I'm a little personally offended by it because I am an officer in the military in my reserve capacity and a law professor, and I take my obligation very seriously. The facts are the facts.
We have about 5 more minutes before we go to the House of Representatives. Shreveport, Louisiana, you're next.
Hello.
You're on, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to make a couple of points on there about all the trouble you're talking about on different people driving back and forth. If you take the politicians and the media off the war over there, you will see this thing handled like it's supposed to. If the same circumstances, which it was a little bit handling in World War II, but not as bigger degree as it is now, keep them out of it, we're capable of winning the war, fixing the prisons, treating the people right, and any military man, generals, whatever it may be, get on national TV or get in a newspaper and state we cannot win this war, should be disbarred and dismembered. Because everything they know about and been taught about for a political reason, just to state a stupid mistake like that we can't defeat something, is ignorant. Thank you.
Pinedale, Wyoming. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Hello, Mr. Stimson.
Good morning.
I'm calling from a remote place in Wyoming, and I am a Blue Star mom. My son is currently serving in Iraq. And this Guantanamo thing, I guess that's the subject today, so I'll go on that. Why are we taking people and putting them in prison for a long time, even though they may be bad guys, and not even vetting out the ones who might have got caught up in, the net? We're not even doing that. And the other thing is, I know President Bush is talking about Iraq tonight, and I would like to send a message out to him if he watches C-SPAN. We need to get the hell out. Thank you.
There is a vetting process, which I've explained before, but let me go over it again. There were processes in place, ma'am, in Afghanistan before these detainees were brought to Guantanamo, only the certain high value or high intelligence. But by its very nature, we know now that intelligence is not perfect. And so there was a process in place when they got to Guantanamo called the Combatant Status Review Tribunals. You can go to our website and read about all the due process that the detainees received for that. And then every year, although we're not required, we conduct an annual review board process. And that has resulted, ma'am, facts are hard to get past, in the release or transfer of 377 detainees from Guantanamo. 114 last year. We're on pace to release or transfer close to 100 this year. I'm not going to make promises because these diplomatic negotiations are very difficult. So I take issue with your characterization. I'm very happy to hear that you're, I think you said, a blue something mother, mother of a person serving our country. I too was recalled after 9/11 and I served my time. But we do have review processes in place.
Keedysville, Maryland. Go ahead.
It's appalling, but of course it's pretty much par for the course that they'd trot someone like you out here to defend all of this. You clearly have no capability of independent or original thought. Everything that you believe and everything that comes out of your mouth was spoon-fed to you before you were in high school, so we're not going to get a straight answer from you. But what I'd like to know is, the company line is that Iraq is a central front in the bogus war on terror. So could you maybe explain to us how it is that there aren't any Iraqis in Guantanamo? I guess there's no terrorists over there, or what?
I'll answer the intelligent part of his comment, and that is the detainees in Guantanamo were picked up in OEF, Operation Enduring Freedom. Iraq, to refresh your recollection, to begin with, is the Geneva Convention's conflict. The security internees, or the enemy combatants who were picked up in Iraq, remain in Iraq in the detention facilities we have there. We haven't made the policy choice to take any Iraqis from a sovereign country out of Iraq and bring them to Guantanamo.
Does a Democratic Congress affect, in your mind, the future of Guantanamo Bay?
Hard question to answer. I don't know. Over the years, we've taken about a third of the Senate to Guantanamo and their staffers, both parties. I think 175 or 80 congressmen and their staffers, regardless of party. Obviously, all of the new Congress who were just elected in their welcome aboard packages had a form to fill out if they want to go to Guantanamo. I suspect many will take the opportunity to do that, and I encourage them to do that. We have provided hundreds of briefings, hearings, etc. on Guantanamo. Information flow goes back and forth, and I am encouraged by that, and I look forward to more of those contacts with the Hill.
Is there a place that the Department of Defense maintains on the internet that people can learn about Guantanamo Bay?
Sure. DefenseLink.mil, www.defenselink.mil, and you can go on the Detainee Affairs tab and read all about all the things I've just been talking about.
Charles Stimson, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Pedro.
Tomorrow on this program, we will have reaction